Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidil Mursaleen wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Ma ataakumur rasulu fakhudhuhu wa ma nahakum anhu fantahu. Sadaqallahu al-azim. Jazakumullahu khairan for coming today again and praying the Fajr with us and attending this lecture on Imam Abu Dhabi rahimahullah or radiyallahu ta'ala an. In last 3 sessions, I talked about Imam Bukhari and then Imam Muslim and then Imam Tirmidhi rahimahullah. And we talked methodology of all these 3 Imams. And today, inshallah, we are going to talk about Imam Abu Dhabi, one of the well-known Imam in the science of Hadith and in the world of Hadith. So, Muhaddithun, mashallah, they will not be a Muhaddith unless they know Imam Abu Dhabi, they know his book Sunan Abi Dawud. So, mashallah, a very famous Imam, very famous Muhaddith and scholar, and his collection Sunan Abi Dawud is very famous. So today, inshallah, I will be talking first about his life and biography and then his book and the methodology, inshallah. So his name is Sulaiman bin Ash'ath bin Ishaq as-Sajistani, Azdi as-Sajistani, and Abu Dawud is his title. So Kunniya or the title, his title or Kunniya is Abu Dawud rahimahullah. He born in 202 Hijri. Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah or radiyallahu ta'ala anhu passed away 204 Hijri, and he born in 202 Hijri. So 2 years before Imam Shafi'i radiyallahu ta'ala anhu departs from this world. So he born in area, Khurasan area, in Central Asia, you can see. MashaAllah, he grew up as the ulama of the time, the scholars of the time, they grow up as we learn about Imam Bukhari, Muslim, Tirmidhi and others we know. So from their childhood, they are eager to know the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Quran and Hadeeth of Rasul sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. So likewise, Imam Abu Dhabi did. So he grew up by learning or in love of Hadeeth of Rasul sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. So that's why he, following the tradition of the time, he first of all finished his study in his area, and then Rihla, as I mentioned in earlier in my Imam Bukhari or Imam Muslim's life, that following the tradition of the time, these scholars, these muhaddithun, they were traveling, or Rihla fi ilm al-hadith is well known. This is one of the chapter in science of hadith when we read Rihla fi talab al-hadith or ila talab al-hadith. So what the muhaddithun or the scholars do, they leave their town. First of all, this is also adab of learning anything. The sciences of the Islam or the subjects of Islam you learn. So first you do around you. You start from your local scholars. You learn with them. You sit with them. Once he finished with you or he is done with you, or you finished all these subjects, he is expert in that, then you go to the next. Then you go to the next and next and next. That's adab of learning in general. And this adab or this tradition is followed by our muhaddithun or scholars of ahadith, mashallah, in a well manner. So Imam Abu Dhabi radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he followed this tradition, and once he learned in his area, then he went, of course, first of all in Hijaz, Makkatul Mukarrama, Madinatul Munawwara. Then he sat with the scholars there, he learned from them, and then the other Islamic centers of knowledge at that time, Iraq, Basra, Kufa, Syria, Qahira, and all these places, these were the learning centers at that time. And some of them are still, but at that time it was well known. But he went to Baghdad many times, and he stayed there, Iraq, Baghdad many times, and he stayed there. He learned from the scholars, and he taught to the scholars, and until he became, mashallah, a great scholar of the time. His when we talk about his teachers are big scholars as well, because the time he is living in, so this time is the time full of the scholars and shuyukh and mashayikh and the ulama and the scholars. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, on top of that, is one of his sheikh, and we know who Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal is. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal is a student of Imam al-Shafi'i radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. So in terms of hadith, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal is Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. When we talk about hadith, so without Ahmad ibn Hanbal, we cannot talk about hadith. And likewise the fiqh. So Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, then Abu Amr al-Darir, then Imam Muslim bin Ibrahim, then Raja, then Abu Walid al-Tayalisi, and others. And mashallah, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal and Uthman bin Shaybah and Qutayba bin Sa'd and Imam Bukhari and Muslim, they are his teacher. Imam Bukhari and Muslim is also teacher of Imam Abu Dhabi. So they are the ustaz or the teacher of Imam Abu Dhabi rahimahullah. And likewise, if we talk about his students, so mashallah, big scholars are his students, Imam Nasai and others, so big names. So teacher and students, at that time, if you see all the mashayikh, all the muhaddisun, their mashayikh are well-known mashayikh, their students are well-known students of the time. And when he finished his learning with all these mashayikh, then of course he started writing the books of ahadith, and he collecting the books of hadith. So the scholars of the time, they praised him. Scholars of the time, they praised him, like we were reading about Imam Bukhari and Muslim and Tirmizi. That's the tradition. When you are authority, so someone have to recognize, or someone has to recognize your authority. So scholars of the time, following the tradition, they praised Imam Abu Dhabi as well. So one of the muhaddis, his name is Hafiz Musa bin Harun. Hafiz is not Hafiz of Quran, Hafizul Hadith, memorized thousands and thousands of hadith. He is talking about Imam Abu Dhabi and praising, and he says that, mashallah, interesting sentence, how these scholars were respecting each other and praising. So he says, خُلِقَ أبو داود في الدنيا للحديث وفي الآخرة للجنة وما رأيت أفضل منه. He says, Imam Abu Dhabi, because his eagerness to learn a hadith, so he says, Imam Abu Dhabi is created here in this world for hadith. That's all. His all patience is, his whole life is devoted only to learn the hadith of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So in dunya only for hadith, and akhirah, of course, if you are a student of hadith, in akhirah jannat is for you. وَخُلِقَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ لِلْجَنَّةِ وَمَا رَأَيْتُ أَفْضَلَ مِنْهُ. I have never seen anyone more knowledgeable than him, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And mashallah, one more muhaddis, he says, أُلْيِنَ لِأَبِي دَاوُدْ الْحَدِيث كَمَا أُلْيِنَ لِدَاوُدْ عَلَيْهِ السَّلَامِ الْحَدِيث. For Imam Abu Dhabi, the hadith became so soft, meaning accessible. Hadith became accessible for him, like the iron became soft to Sayyidina Dawood alayhi salam, Nabi Dawood alayhi salam. So Nabi Dawood alayhi salam, mashallah, his work is well known, or his expertise is well known. So he was working with the iron, and mashallah, his expertise is in that area. So likewise, Imam Abu Dhabi, is expert in Hadith of Rasul sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. In terms of the respect of ahadith, Khulafa of the time, they wanted Imam Abu Dhabi to come to their houses and teach their children's ahadith. Imam Abu Dhabi did not agree with that. Some of the Khalifa at that time asked him to come his house and teach his children. He was not ready. He did not agree. He says, no. If anyone wanted to learn the hadith or the knowledge of hadith, they have to come to me instead of I should go to them. So that shows adab of ahadith of Rasul sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. Not only that, spiritually he is well known. Spiritually he is well known, and spiritually, mashallah, is known in terms of the respect of hadith. One of the story is very famous with regard to Imam Abu Dhabi radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. The story says, it's authentic story. In his biography we learn that Imam Abu Dhabi has his circle of knowledge or halqa of hadith. And of course his students should be the Imam. The Imams are his students, like Imam Tirmidhi and Imam Nasai and Abu Bakr ibn Abu Dawud, his son himself. So these are his students, likewise many mashayikh. So one day what happened, there was a scholar, a person, Abu Abdullah at-Tustari. He was just walking around. He was known as Majnoon of the time, crazy person. Not many people were respecting him, but he's a person. He was living in Muslim society, so he was going here and there. So one day he started coming to the majlis of Imam Abu Dhabi radiyallahu ta'ala. The scholars, the students, they saw Abdullah Tustari is coming here. Why is coming here? What he has to do here with the knowledge of hadith? We are the muhaddisun, we are the student of hadith, we are the shuyukh, we are the student of this. Abdullah Tustari doesn't have anything to do with us. But he came, and directly he went to Imam Abu Dhabi, who was delivering the lecture explaining the hadith of Rasul alayhi salam. He went and sit down and says, Abu Dhabi, I have something, if you would promise with me, then I will share with you. I have a question, and you have to fulfill. You have to promise that if whatever I will ask you, you are going to do that. He says, it's weird. I don't know what you are going to ask. And he says, no, you can do that and you have to promise that. He says, okay, tell me what's your question or what's your demand. He says, but you have to promise. He said, I am promising with you. I will do that if I can. He says, okay, now you did the promise. Take out your tongue. I wanted to lick your tongue. He said, okay, I did the promise. Then there is no choice. I have to do that. All the muhaddisun are there. And he took out his tongue. And Abdullah Tustari is licking his tongue. Now it was a strange action, a weird action. So he was asked, why did you do that? Imam Abu Dhabi says, okay, fine. But now tell us. He says, it's just the respect of the hadith of Rasul alayhi salam. He said, he's explaining, he said that I and we, he's talking about himself, he says, I was unable to see Rasul sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. So it was in my mind. I did not see Rasul alayhi salam. So I was thinking long time, and finally I decided, let's go to the person who is narrating the hadith of Rasul alayhi salam. So if Rasul alayhi salam would be here, of course, we could kiss his forehead and his hand and his feet, all these things out of respect. So now Rasul alayhi salam is not here. So I decided the person who is narrating, or the tongue which is sharing the hadith of Rasul alayhi salam, it deserved the respect. So for that, I decided to do that, and out of respect I did that. So Imam Abu Dhabi did not say anything, and all the scholars were sitting there. They did not have any comments on that. Just to have a little pause here. If it happens today, how many fatwas we will have? It's a bid'ah, it's wrong, it's completely out of the fold of Islam. It has nothing to do with Islam. And particularly it's in majlis, it's in masjid, it's in halaqah of knowledge. Hundreds of fatwa you will have. There is no example in a hadith of Rasul alayhi salam, but Imam Abu Dhabi is authority and his students are authority in the hadith of Rasul alayhi salam, and this is done in front of all of them. So this shows that these scholars and mashayikh and muhaddisun, they were not just issuing the fatwa, they also have some intellectual reasoning and to understand the issues as well. Anyhow, this is Imam Abu Dhabi, and this is at his time the respect of ahadith of Rasul sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. Before I go to his mu'allafat or his authorship, one more thing is very important. He spiritually was very close to Rasul sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. All the muhaddisun, of course, mashallah, but especially Imam Abu Dhabi radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. The biographers who wrote his biography, they mention very clearly about his appearance, how he looks like. So scholars, they say, they connect his appearance to the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. Many of you may know Shamail of Rasul sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, and I mentioned when I was talking about Imam Tirmidhi compiled a book is known Shama'il al-Rasul sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, where he is talking about the appearance of Rasul sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, his description, how he looks like. So, and some of these scholars in our time, based on that, they compiled a different book, and they have the title Hada Nabiyyu Ka'annaka Tara. This is Rasul alayhi salam. It's as you are seeing him. When you read this description, you will realize or recognize you are seeing Rasul sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. So based on that, we know how Rasul sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam looks like. So following that, scholars, they connected that to persona of Imam Abu Dhabi radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. So they say they comes from they start from Abu Dhabi, and they say Abu Dhabi looks like in all of his appearance and his ethics, akhlaq and morality and appearance, he looks like Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal radiyallahu ta'ala. And then they say Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, in his attitude, in his akhlaq, in his manner, in his style, in his appearance, looks like Waqi' ibn al-Jarrah. And then they say Waqi' ibn al-Jarrah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, in all of his manners, his appearance, his akhlaq, he looks like Sufyan Thawri, one of the muhaddith of the time. And Sufyan Thawri, in his akhlaq, in his manner, in his appearance, in his style, looks like Mansur. And then Mansur, in his appearance, in his akhlaq, in his style, looks like Ibrahim al-Nakha'i radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, greatest muhaddith of the time. Then Ibrahim al-Nakha'i, in his appearance, in his akhlaq, in his manner, in his style, looks like Alqama bin Waqqas al-Laythi. Then Alqama bin Waqqas al-Laythi radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he is a tabi'i. In his appearance, in his style, in his akhlaq, in morality, looks like Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, a sahabi, a great sahabi and well-known faqih among the sahaba radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, in all of his manners, appearance and akhlaq, looks like the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. So as a result, in mantiq, when we read the mantiq, we follow this the methodology. It's called Haddul Awsat. The middle one you removed, and then whatever result comes, that is the result. So when you remove the middle connections, now you can say Imam Abu Dhabi rahimahullah, in his appearance, in his akhlaq, adab, manner, looks like the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. So it's the benefits of hadith of Rasul sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. When you read a lot, you read Quran, mashallah, you are in divine world. You read a hadith, you are in the world of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So you change yourself and you start acting in the light of ahadith of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it tells us also that we also have to have, when we read the Quran or ahadith of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we have to take it seriously, whatever we are reading, whatever we are understanding. Now, if we move to his books, not only in ahadith, in many subjects he wrote the books. So he wrote Kitabul Marasil, other than Sunan. Marasil is well known, I will talk about that. Marasil. And then also he wrote Kitabul Qadr. He wrote Kitab Al-Nasikh wal-Mansukh. He also wrote Kitab Fadailul A'mal. He wrote Kitab Al-Zuhud, Dalailul Nubuwa, and then Akhbarul Khawarij and Sunan Abi Dawud. These are some of his books. And Kitab al-Marasil is one of his books where he is talking about his Sunan Abi Dawud. He is talking the methodology he followed in his book or in his Sunan. So that is Imam Abu Dhabi radiallahu ta'ala anhu. He memorized many hadiths, thousands and thousands ahadith of Rasul sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, around 400,000. And out of 400,000, he compiled 4,800 ahadith of Rasul alayhi salam. This is the collection of Sunan Abi Dawud, the current collection, but of course it's in volumes. At least in early age, it was published in 2 volumes sometimes, 4 volumes sometimes, but now it's just in 1 volume and nicely printed here, mashallah. And that is known as Sunan Abi Dawud rahimahullah. So from 500,000, sorry, not 400,000, from 500,000 he collected and he selected these 4,800 or 4,800 ahadith. But some of the scholars, they counted the hadith of Abi Dawud, so they counted around 5,274 ahadith. But Imam Abu Dhabi, he himself collected and counted his hadith. So based on his own methodology, it's supposed to be 4,800 ahadith. And when this scholar, his name is Sheikh Muhammad Muhyiddin Abdul Hamid, when he is counting, so he reaches to 5,274 ahadith. Some of the ahadith, Imam Abu Dhabi does not consider it separate ahadith. It comes just under one hadith, so he did not count separately. And this muhaddith or this scholar is counting it separately. That's why the number increased. But basically, 4,800 ahadith are in this collection in Sunan Abi Dawud. So when he wrote this hadith, this collection, ulama, they liked it, they praised it, and they said, MashaAllah, whoever has this collection of ahadith, so it's sufficient for him to know the ahadith, to know the law or the ahkam of the Islam. It's sufficient for them. So Imam Abu Dhabi, his book is basically distinct from the books of Bukhari and Muslim and Tirmizi in many ways. First of all, these books we learn Imam Bukhari, mashallah, is most authentic book, and then Imam Muslim, then Imam Tirmidhi, but they all were having something which Imam Abu Dhabi did not have, or he has in different way. So Imam Abu Dhabi's hadith or the collection is known particularly for ahadith al-ahkam. Ahadith al-ahkam meaning rulings, law. If you want to draw a law, so Imam Abu Dhabi's book is most important in that regard. So if you wanted to know any hukm, Shari'i hukm or any law, this is right, wrong, permitted, not permitted, mabah, not mabah, fard, wajib, sunnah, whatever is that. So Imam Abu Dhabi's collection is the best of the best in that. It will be hard for us to draw a ruling from Imam Bukhari, from Imam Muslim, from Imam Tirmidhi. And Imam Tirmidhi, as we knew, he also mentioned the aqwal of Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala, aqwal of Ahlul Ilmi, statements of these scholars, Sahaba, Tabi'in and other scholars. And likewise, Imam Muslim, he gives you a lot of sanad and the asnad and many ahadith and many narrations. But Imam Abu Dhabi is very precise on the topic. If, for example, he is talking about ghusl, for example, so he will give you chapter of ghusl, only the ahadith of ghusl. And he will not elaborate a lot, just 1-2 ahadith. And if there are longer ahadith, he can concise that, he can summarize that hadith in his book. But also he talks about ruwat. He talks about the ruwats. Once he mentions the hadith, he will tell you many times that this Ravi is here, he is authentic or he is not authentic. And he will explain the meaning of the ahadith as well. So like the hadith, there are many you can find, but just one of the example is talking about فيما يستحب من الجيوش والرفقاء والسرايا. When the armies, they are departing, or the saraya, the small group of the people, they are appointed or they are assigned to defend their region or their areas. So what should be their manner? In that regard, the hadith is narrated here. Rasul alayhi salam says, خير الصحابة أربع وخير السرايا 400 وخير الجيوش 4000 ولن يغلب 12,000 من قلة. He says, if you are traveling, it's better to be with 4 people for companionship. And then 400 people, if you are defending your country and you are appointed to defend, you are on the border, frontier or border side of your country, your region, it's better to be 400 people. And then Khairul Jushi Arba'at Alaf, the 4,000 army contains, it's a better army. And if your army is contained like a 12,000 people, 12,000 number you have in your army, so it's the best of the best. And then from that, scholars, they say if you have 12,000, you will not be defeated. And likewise here in the hadith. That's the hadith, meaning of hadith. But what Imam Abu Dhabi says after that, قال Abu Dhabi وَالصَّحِيهُ أَنَّهُ مُرْسَلٌ. So this hadith is narrated with a long chain, and Zuhri and Ubaidullah ibn Abdullah ibn Abbas, and before that. So the chain of narration is there. But Imam Abu Dhabi considers this hadith mursal, which is the Sahabi is removed and directly Zuhri is narrating directly to Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam without a reference of Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. So that hadith, so it has muttasil with connected chain and without connected chain. For Abu Dawud, the mursal one without connected chain one is more authentic than the one which is with more connected chain. But scholars later on they highlighted and they found no, the connected chain one is also authentic. But for Abu Dawud, he is highlighting. That's one of his methodology. He will tell you if the mursal of this hadith or the one which is not connected, this is more authentic, or the one which is connected, that one is more authentic. And why? Then sometimes he will give you the reason. Sometimes Imam Abu Dhabi, he explains the word which is mentioned in hadith of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Like there is another hadith in a chapter, he says, Babun fi karahiyati sayri fi awwalil layl. When you are traveling in night, so what would be the manner of traveling? What would be the manner of safar or the traveling or the journey? So the hadith is narrated here. He says, حدثنا أحمد بن أبي شعيب الحراني حدثنا زهير حدثنا أبو الزبير عن جابر رضي الله تعالى عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله تعالى عليه وسلم لا ترسلوا فواشيكم إذا غابت الشمس حتى تذهب فحمة العشاء فإن الشياطين تعيث إذا غابت الشمس حتى تذهب فحمة العشاء. The word fawashi, the idea is here, لا ترسلوا فواشيكم إذا غابت الشمس. In the night when sun sets, at that time, don't let your children or the people to go around, your children basically to go around outside of the house. Why? حتى تذهب فحمة العشاء, unless until the Isha time is over. Isha time is, or the darkness of, Fahma means the darkness of the night is over. Or why? The idea is because the shayateen is all around at that time. When sun sets, so shayateen is all around. So keep your children inside of your house. They would not be affected if you are keeping them. Hatta tadhaba fahmatul isha, when the dark night is over, then it's fine. Now Imam Abu Dawud, this word fawashi, it was for me also hard. When I read first time, I said, what could be the meaning? Fawashi. So now Abu Dawud himself is explaining this word. He says at the end of the hadith, Qala Abu Dawud, as his student says, Al-fawashi ma yafshu min kulli shay. Something is spread out. From anything is spread out. But here intended the shayateen. Or anything else it could be. So if any wrong things or wrongful or something would harm you, that is in dark night, you cannot see that. You cannot watch that. So it could harm you. That is the meaning of hadith. But the point is, Imam Abu Dawud is giving us the meaning of this word, which was unknown even for the scholars. So after narrating the hadith, he tells you this is the meaning. And sometimes the narrator, if the narrator is unknown, so Imam Abu Dawud will talk about the narrator. Like the another hadith, Babun fil ibtikari fil safar. So in that hadith, he narrates, or his student starts from here, or he starts from here. حدثنا سعيد بن منصور حدثنا هشيم حدثنا يعلى بن عطاء حدثنا عمارة بن حديد عن صخر الغامدي عن النبي صلى الله تعالى عليه وآله وسلم قال اللهم بارك لأمتي في بكورها وكان إذا بعث سرية أو جيشا بعثهم في أول النهار وكان صخر رجلا تاجرا وكان يبعث تجارته من أول النهار فأثرى وكثر ماله. So he talks, when you are a businessman or you wanted to leave, you wanted to have a journey to go outside of your country for your business, for something. So what would be the right times? The right time is early morning is better time. Early morning is better time. But the person Sakhar is mentioned here. So he was unknown. So for him, Imam Abu Dawud says, Qala Abu Dawud wa huwa Sakhr bin Wada'a. So this person was unknown. Now Imam Abu Dawud is highlighting who is this person, Sakhr bin Wada'a. So this is some of his methodology. When something is unknown in hadith, the word is unknown, he would tell you the meaning. The narrator is unknown, he will highlight who this narrator is. And if there is ilal in hadith, there is some defect or some weakness in the hadith, he would highlight that weakness. There is some weakness in this hadith. And in general, what type of ahadith is in his collection? This was known when the people in Makkatul Mukarramah in Hijaz asked him. So he wrote a letter. His letter is well known. Risalatu Abi Dawood li Ahli Makkah is well known. It's a collection you can find anywhere. And mashallah, this Risala is basically writing a letter to the scholars of Makkah. So Risalatu Abi Dawood li Ahli Makkah, writing a letter to the people of Makkah. What he is writing in this letter? He is basically writing the methodology of his collection, because people were eager to know what type of ahadith is mentioned in this collection and how we can find out, or what many questions they have. So when the scholars they raised the question, Imam Abu Dawud wrote a letter and explaining that. So in that he is writing from where the scholars came to know his methodology. So he writes and he says in that letter, Asahhu ma araftu fil bab. Whatever I mention in this, under the chapter, that will be most authentic hadith in that chapter. Most authentic hadith in that chapter. And then he says, وَوَقَفْتُ عَلَى جَمِيعِ مَا. Some of these scholars are writing that. وَوَقَفْتُ عَلَى جَمِيعِ مَا ذَكَرْتُمْ فَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّهُ كَذَلِكَ كُلُّ إِلَّا أَنْ يَكُونَ قَدْ رُوِيَ مِنْ وَجْهَيْنِ صَحِيحَيْنِ فَأَحَدُهُمَا أَقْدَمُ إِسْنَادًا. So there are two narrations. One is more authentic, one is less authentic. But the less authentic, if that is higher chain, the shortest chain. I think I talked when I was talking about Imam Bukhari. So we have two types of chain: shortest chain and the longer chain. So longer and shorter chain. So if there is the ulubul isnad, meaning shortest chain, so he would prefer that. So sometimes there would be weakness, but if it's the shortest chain reach to Rasul sallallahu ta'ala alaihi wasallam, he would prefer that. And then sometimes then he says, وَالْآخَرُ صَاحِبُهُ أَقْوَمْ فِي الْحِفْظِ فَرُبَّمَا كَتَبْتُ ذَلِكَ. And sometimes the chain is that the narrator, they are very well known and they are huffaz of ahadith, more preserving. So he also bring them also in their narrations or in the chain of the narration. One of the concept is called marasil. Marasil is well known with Imam Abu Dhabi. Marasil is a hadith. When the tabi, I was explaining to you when I mentioned this example, when I quoted that tabi'i, student of tabi'i, or the tabi'i basically, he removes sahabi. So tabi'i, Imam Zuhri, for example, he would remove Abdullah ibn Abbas and he would say Qala Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. So he is a student of sahabi. He did not see Rasul sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. Many times Zuhri, he narrates from Aisha radiallahu ta'ala or from other nephews of Aisha radiallahu ta'ala and other Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhu. So what he would do, he removes this Sahabi and directly he would say, this is narrated from Rasul sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. So this hadith is called Mursal. There is a difference, or there are the differences of opinion among the Muhaddithun. Imam Shafi'i radiallahu ta'ala anhu is the first one who said, I am not going to take the Hujjah, Mursal as a Hujjah, or I am not considering Marasil as Hujjah. Tabari is first Tabari highlighted that the Tabari says the scholars for a long time they were considering Marasil as Hujjah until Shafi'i came, and Imam Shafi'i did not consider Marasil as Hujjah. This is just the statement of Tabari, but later on scholars they explain when Imam Shafi'i says I am not going to consider Marasil, it has detail. In general you cannot say this. So Imam Shafi'i has certain condition for that, and based on that he says if it fulfills these conditions, then it will be considered as Hujjah or Dalil, but if it doesn't fulfill those conditions, so that will not consider as a Hujjah or as proof or Dalil. But in general, the ulama, they accept it. But some of the people, they raise this question to Imam Abu Dhabi. He says, how come? What's your opinion? I see some of the marasil in your book. So what's your opinion about that? So he is writing, وَأَمَّا الْمَرَاسِيلِ فَقَدْ كَانَ يُحْتَجُّ بِهَا الْعُلَمَاء فِيمَا مَضَى. The marasil, mursal ahadith, scholars, they were bringing that and considering as evidence. فَإِن لَمْ يَكُنْ مُسْنَدٌ ضِدَّ الْمَرَاسِيلِ وَلَمْ يُوجَدِ الْمُسْنَدُ فَالْمُرْسَلْ يُحْتَجُّ بِهِ وَلَيْسَ هُوَ مِثْلُ الْمُتَّصِلِ فِي الْقُوَّةِ. He says if there is some hadith which is with connected chain, if that is not against this marasil, this connected chain one, so it's okay to take that. And also فَالْمُرْسَلْ يُحْتَجُّ بِهِ وَلَيْسَ هُوَ مِثْلُ الْمُتَّصِلِ فِي الْقُوَّةِ. So we can take it in consideration and we can make as Hujjah, as Dalil. But with regard to the connected chain, which is Muttasil one, of course it has the preference. It is preferred one. And then also he says in this book, in this one, وَلَيْسَ في كتاب السنن الذي صنفته عن رجل متروك الحديث شيء. Remember when I was talking about Imam Bukhari, I used this word matrukul hadith. Matrukul hadith meaning someone who was not considered by the scholars of hadith, meaning when the scholars they say this word huwa matruk, meaning he is da'if, he is weak in hadith. He is not fake, but he is weak in hadith, so his narration would be weak narration or da'if narration. Imam Abu Dhabi says, in my collection, I did not narrate any hadith from a person who has this attribute, matrukul hadith, or who is weak with that attribution. So I'm not collecting the hadith with the reference of that person. But وَإِذَا كَانَ فِيهِ حَدِيثٌ مُنْكَرٌ بَيَّنْتُ أَنَّهُ مُنْكَرٌ. So matruk is different level, then the munkar is the higher level in terms of du'af and weakness. So more weakness is in munkar. So if some hadith is narrated by munkar narrators, meaning weak narrator, so if there is a hadith, bayyantu annahu munkar, I would say this hadith is weak or this hadith is munkar in this way. وليس على نحوه في الباب غيره وقد ألفته رسما ما وقع عندي. And he goes on and on, he's writing about that. But one more important thing in that, he says وما كان في كتابي من حديث فيه وهن شديد فقد بينته. If there is a hadith, and this hadith is very much da'if, very strong in terms of da'af or weakness. So if that was the case, then I would say that this is da'if, this is so da'if, so weak. I would highlight that. وَمِنُ مَا لَا يَصِحُ سَنَدُهُ وَمَا لَمْ أَذْكُرْ فِيهِ شَيْءٍ. And whatever the sanad is not right or the correct or not authentic, I would say that. So this is not normally in the books of ahadith. Imam Abu Dhabi does that. But one more point remains here, which is وَمَا لَمْ أَذْكُرْ فِيهِ شَيْئًا فَهُوَ صَالِحٌ وَبَعْدُهَا أَصَحْ مِنْ بَعْدٍ. The scholars like Ibn Hajar and Sakhawi and others, they talk a lot about this sentence of Imam Abu Dhabi. Meaning of this sentence is, if some ahadith, he does not say this is sahih or daif or whatever, if he does not say, what would be the ruling about that hadith? He did not highlight, he is silent. So it's known as Sukut Abi Dawood. Sukut Abu Dawood, or where Imam Abu Dhabi did not highlight the ruling of this hadith, this is sahih or not, what would be the ruling about that? So he says, فَهُوَ صَالِحٌ. He says, if I'm not talking about any hadith, simply I'm quoting the hadith, simply I'm mentioning the hadith, just think that hadith is authentic hadith, that is salih. Many hadiths you can find in that. Like the hadith, لَقَدْ إِرْتَقَيْتُ عَلَى ظَهْرِ الْبَيْتِ فَرَأَيْتُ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ تَعَالَى عَلَيْهِ وسلم على لبنتين مستقبل بيت المقدس لحاجته. Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu is narrating the manner of fulfilling the need, manner of Rasul alayhi salam in that regard. So he just mentioned this hadith, and he does not talk anything. He did not say anything after narrating this hadith. What would be this hadith? Is that sahih? Is that weak? Is that fake? What is that? So Imam Abu Dhabi says, if I don't say anything, so think that is salih, that is considerable, that is authentic, and that we can make it as hujjah, as the evidence. And then, but the scholars, وَبَعْدُهَا أَصَحْ مِنْ بَعْدٍ, and some of them are more authentic than other hadiths, if I'm not talking about that. But Imam Ibn Hajar, he talks and he discusses, and others, they talk, they say, no. If Imam Abu Dhabi did not highlight what is the category of this hadith is, so simply we are not going to take it as authentic unless and until it was supported by other scholars of hadith. So for example, Ibn Hajar himself, or Nasai after him, or Ibn Majah after him, or Hakim after him, or any other muhaddis after him, if they are saying yes, this hadith is sahih or this hadith is authentic, then they say, then according to these muhaddisun, Ibn Hajar and others, now we can take it and we can consider it sahih. In short, the book of Imam Abu Dhabi, first of all, this is the book of fiqh, law, ahkam. So he focuses on that. If you wanted to know ruling of anything, it's so easy to find out the ruling of that thing in Islam in Sunan Abi Dawood. That's number one. Number two, in terms of the methodology, there is some da'if ahadith, but Imam Abu Dhabi himself highlights this is da'if. If he does not say about any hadith this is da'if or not, for him this is authentic. But for Ibn Hajar and others, if it is supported by other scholars, then that will be sahih or authentic hadith. That is the summary of his methodology, and this is summary about the biography of Imam Abu Dawood radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. قولوا قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم